Hi, my name is Vern Frykholm. I'm with George Washington Speaks, and I'm here today with Mark Curtis, who's the president of the Northwest Colonial Reenactors Association. And Mark, let me just ask you right off the bat, a lot of people don't really know what reenacting is. Can you kind of give us an idea of what reenacting is?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Vern, because reenacting can fall under a number of different categories. You have people like yourself in George Washington Speaks, you're portraying a specific person from history.
Right.
You have people that get involved in reenacting who are battle reenactors. They want to go out and reenact what happened during the Revolutionary War.
Okay.
Then you have a group of people who are into it for more the living history side of things. The skills, the lifestyle. You have to realize that we look at colonial reenacting particularly, and the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is Revolutionary War. And with that comes the battles. And if you go to a public reenactment, a lot of times it is centered around the battles. And that's an aspect of it. And there are groups out there that focus in on that. With the Northwest Colonial Reenactors Association, we kind of are all encompassing all types of reenactment, public, private,
Okay.
for our own education and also education of others.
Okay. So when you say that different skills people bring to the reenactment, what type of skills are we talking about?
Well, within the Northwest Colonial Reenactors Association, we have, like I said, we've talked about the battle reenactors.
Right. Yeah.
We have a town crier, and he is actually on the National Registry of Town Criers.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. We've had people who were seamstresses, make clothing, blacksmiths, gunsmiths, horners.
Excuse me. Horner?
Horners. That's people who made things out of horns. Everybody out of cow horn.
Okay.
Everybody assumes it's just powder horns, but eating utensils, as well as mirrors and boxes and combs for their hair. All sorts of things were made from horns. And these are different, what you would call guilds. Horners Guild,
Okay.
the Gunmakers Guilds. So, but back before unions, we had.
Okay. So now you say that there is public and private get-togethers. What does a public event look like?
Well, sometimes it will be a community that's looking for a display. They want people to come out and portray that period in time. And we've done a number of those. Sometimes you're asked from a school to come and give a presentation. You can have battle reenactments, which there's a number of them around, or as well as just drilling and the military side of that.
Okay. And so we talked about the Colonial, and what about now? I understand there's Civil War reenactors. What other groups of reenactors that might be something completely unknown to me?
For myself personally,
Yes.
I came out of a group of individuals who reenact the Rocky Mountain fur trade prior to 1840, the Mountain Men.
Yes.
And there are groups out there, and those tend to be more private within camping, and the public events are more shooting competition. That is a more shooting centrist type of event. For myself personally, I got involved in that through a desire to get involved with some form of competitive shooting. I've been a firearms guy my entire life, and when I entered into that, a good friend of mine said, well, if you're going to portray this period of time, you should really know what you're talking about. And he gave me a reading list. So I got a couple 3 books, and I sat down and I went through them. And by the time I got done with my reading assignment, it was the history that hooked me. That was the hook for me, not so much the competition and that, which is a lot of fun, and I've done it for many, many years, but it was the history. And I think it was because of the history is what brought me to evolve into the colonial era.
Okay, let's explore that. What do you mean by history? That's a big, what is it about the history that got to you?
Well, I think what it was is that when you would go to these events, everybody was just focused on how their shooting was going. Where I wanted to, and they would have limited knowledge of the actual history. I'm not a historian. What I consider myself is a history enthusiast. And so I wanted to know not just the 30,000 foot view of what I was doing, but I wanted to know exactly what the people that were there prior to 1840, what they were experiencing. Can I get to the point to doing exactly what they did? And so I started reading journals of people who were really there.
Now, when you say what they did and you move back 100, 150 years, well, now they are living in different places and they're wearing different things and they're eating different things. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. You know, when you look at the Hollywood perception of what a mountain man is, or the Hollywood perception of what the Revolutionary War was about, and you start looking about, okay, what kind of clothes did they really wear? And what you see portrayed in Hollywood isn't what the Rocky Mountain fur trapper wore. The Rocky Mountain fur trade was an international commerce enterprise.
Okay.
You were taking beaver to make top hats, and in return, goods from all around the world were being brought to the Rocky Mountains in trade for those goods. So as a worldwide global economy is what was created there. And so what they wore were different than what you might believe. How they lived, what they ate. You look at Joe Meek in the writings about Joe Meek. Until he met Narcissus Whitman, bringing the Whitmans out to the Northwest, she had made biscuits in a Dutch oven when he brought them across. And he said he had not eaten bread in 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
At that time. So, you know, to get into, okay, what did they live on? How did they provide for themselves? And how did they survive in the Rocky Mountains? And getting that knowledge and getting down into exactly the way they lived and how they did what they did was more important to me than just going and competing and you know, it's enough to get by. And that wasn't good enough for me.
Okay, so a Dutch oven? What's a Dutch oven?
Okay, a Dutch oven is a cast iron kettle with a lid on it that allows you to put charcoal under it for bottom heat and charcoal over it for top heat. So it's similar to the oven you have in your home.
Sure.
Works the same way.
Okay. So now I see the furs going east and over to Europe. And so what were the items? And I'm assuming the furs were either from Native American groups or French trappers themselves, or I don't know, maybe it was more than that. But what type of stuff did they want in return?
The goods that came back is you had blankets from England, English wool blankets. You had glass beads from Eastern Europe. Was a large commodity.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And just things like knives, kettles. You know, when they're trading with the Indians, things that they don't have. And that was large, you know, had a lot of demand and a lot of value. Blue beads, for whatever reason, were more valuable to the Native Americans than other color beads.
Okay, so entering into the history and there's the food, the trade items. What about sleeping? Did you sleep in What did you sleep in? Tents,
Uh,
teepees, sod huts?
Interesting enough, Alfred Jacob Miller, who was the only artist who was in the Rocky Mountains at the time,
Okay.
uh, he made a lot of money selling his sketches and selling his paintings.
Okay.
Well, I have one of his sketchbooks.
Oh my God.
Well, they reprinted it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But his sketches would show wedge-type tents and simple lean-tos. And by the time he got back east and those turned into paintings, they all turned into teepees.
Oh my
Teepees
God.
sold well.
Oh,
I would go out and stay more than a week in a 10 by 10 piece of flat canvas pitched into a lean-to, sleeping on straw with a couple of blankets.
okay. So now, how long have you been doing this?
Oh, personally,
Yes.
ooh, my age is going to show. Close to 30 years, almost 30 years.
Okay, so I can, if I, 30 years, okay, I can see you sleeping on straw and everything. But what, are you still reenacting?
I still reenact.
And where do you sleep? On the ground?
Well, it depends on where I'm going. So I'll go and still do a fur trade era event. And yes, I will take and put my lean-to up, and I have in my later years graduated from just some straw to I actually have a feather bed that I made out of down. Gives me a little more cushion and some
Okay.
insulation, and the blankets, and still sit on the ground.
Okay.
But now that was one of the things that the Colonial reenactment really appealed to me. I live better.
Oh,
I wear better clothes.
okay.
I get a chair. I could have a table, and I actually sleep in a bed, which and a tent with doors on it. So it's a more comfortable lifestyle.
Okay, then the mountain man. So now, mountain man, what type of, can you describe the clothing that you actually wore?
It's funny the evolution of that.
Okay.
My garb changed considerably, but when I got into those sketchbooks, what I realized is the mountain men primarily wore broad front wool pants.
Okay.
They wore a calico shirt, which would have probably been made out of linen, with no more than 2 colors on it. They would have a wool coat, and they would have some form of a hat, probably a wool hat, because you contrast that to Hollywood, where they're in
Yes.
breechclouts and leggings,
Right.
and they've got all the beadwork dripping all over them. Well, and then they did have the large brim wool hats
Okay.
that they wore. They would not have taken a fur and made a hat out of a fur and put it on their head because they sold the fur. So it'd be like wrapping up dollar bills and putting them around your head. So they wouldn't have done that. And they wouldn't have looked like a Native American, because if you look like the wrong tribe in the area may not like you.
My gosh. Yeah.
If you look at the Indian Sign Language for what a white man is, that's the brim of that wool hat.
Okay. So I'm interested in the shoes. What type of shoes did you wear?
Oh, I wore moccasins.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In the fur trade, definitely wore moccasins.
Okay. And why moccasins?
Because if you're tromping in and out of creeks and rivers all day, setting traps, shoes rot. So you have to be able to make shoes while you're there.
It's another thing.
And the other thing that you'd see, if they had leggings, they would have probably been just short leggings, because the bottoms of their wool pants would have rotted off.
Wow. Huh. Okay. So what about layering clothing? Did they have t-shirt on? Okay.
Well, you would have had probably, like I said, some form of a shirt. And then those wool blankets that we talked about that came over from England, they would make what they call a capote out of that. And that's something that when I first got involved in this, I started making capotes. It's a wool coat made out of an English wool blanket. And there's a number of different styles and such, but yeah, they would wear a wool coat. They very possibly could have a vest. A lot of them wore vests, and they could be made out of a number of different materials. There was corduroy available in 1830s-ish.
Wow, okay.
Would have been what they called the no whale, the very, very wide corduroy.
Huh. What about weapons, rifles? Was it 50 caliber, smoothbore? Was it?
When the first trappers came out, they came out with the long guns that they would have had in the eastern United States. Long barrels, smaller calibers, because you just had black bear and deer that they would have been hunting. And they got out to the Rocky Mountains and they realized that grizzly bears were a different sort of animal. And also, they spent so much of their time on horseback, the very long barrels became difficult. So the calibers got larger, the barrels got shorter, primarily flintlocks, although by the end of the fur trade, the percussion lock muzzleloader became available. A lot of the smoothbore muskets were traded to the Indians.
Okay. So when better varieties came in, they gave that up, which was a step up for the...
Well, they would actually import in muskets to trade.
Oh, I see.
With the Indians. So you would have had both. You know, there's certain advantages to a smoothbore in the fact that you can shoot shot or a solid projectile.
Okay, I'm learning a lot here.
Your rifle has better accuracy and better range.
Okay. Okay.
And it all depends on how wealthy the person was that came out and how well he trapped to be able to trade for better goods while he was there.
Okay, so now did you actually also trap while you were a mountain man reenactor?
In the state of Washington, the type of trap that they used cannot be used in the state of Washington, a body hold trap. Okay. So you actually can't trap. Now I've set traps, I know how to set a trap, I know how to do a trap set, but it's strictly academic.
Okay, all right.
Until you get your finger stuck in it.
I guess. So we're talking about you as an individual portraying, and is that typically individuals, or is it mostly guys, or is it gals, is it families? Are these minimalists or off-the-grid type of people that populate the reenactment community? Can you kind of tell me an idea?
You know, it's the full spectrum. Single guys, single women, families, kids, all economic levels within that. And it comes down a lot to what the individual wants to get out of reenacting.
Okay.
And I think that's probably the question there. If a person like myself wanted to really do it right, I hate to say that, but to be more accurate.
Oh, okay, that's better,
to be more accurate, you're going to be a minimalist.
Okay.
The temptation is to get everything that looks neat, and your camp gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it's like you get tired of hauling it all around, then your camp gets smaller and smaller and smaller. It's an evolution we all go through.
So the families that you know that portray, what's that like? I mean, are the kids really into it, or what does that look like?
In the fur trade reenacting, it is really family-centered. So there's events specifically for different age groups. So you have events for very small children, events for the middle-aged children, and then events for adults.
Okay.
Because the idea is if you're going to bring the family,
yes,
you should have something for everybody to do.
Okay.
And from a historic standpoint, it may not be as accurate, but this is something that is always has been a family event
Okay.
So you kind of set aside the fact that, well, there really wasn't any white women in the Rocky Mountains, and there really wasn't many kids
Okay.
that weren't Native American. And you set that aside so that everybody can enjoy and learn.
Okay, and that kind of goes to another issue. As I understand, certain reenactment groups or maybe individuals want a extremely high level of authenticity, and other groups saying that, our goal is to do something as a family together. And so you probably have even a wide range of people in the community that treat it differently.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that way there's a space for everyone. So within the fur trade community, they have a very large week-long event.
Okay.
And that event is not juried, but it's policed much tighter to make sure, because the goal is at any of these events, best that you can. That you can stand in the middle of an event, turn 360 degrees and not see anything that's out of the time period.
Wow.
That's what the goal is. And some people need a little help getting there.
Sure.
With the NCRA, we tend to keep things pretty tight.
Okay.
And our goal is to help you get to that point.
Okay.
We need to give you some gear, give you some guidance, give you some education so that you can get to that point to where you're comfortable in that environment.
Okay, so you almost have somebody that mentors, or maybe it's the whole group that mentors and helps and puts stuff together.
I can say that in my 30 years experience doing this, that it is the most giving, welcoming group of people.
Wow.
And unbelievably honest group
Wow.
of people I've ever been around.
Wow.
You take any type of camp, whether it's a colonial camp or a fur trade camp, any given camp could have thousands and thousands of dollars worth of firearms and antiques, and you can't put a lock on a tent.
Good point.
So you need to have trust
Sure.
in everyone in there. And
Wow.
it's an unsaid thing, but those people that don't portray that kind of trust seem to not stick around.
Okay. Sure. Now, you started in the mountain man aspect of it, and that was enjoyable. And then you went over to colonial reenactments. Now, you dress up as a certain character. Who is that, and why do you do that person?
Well, initially, 20-some years ago, there was a couple of groups portraying the American side.
Okay.
You had 2nd Connecticut, and there was a Rogers Rangers group that was out there, and they had an interest in doing some skirmishes, some battle skirmishes in the woods, not for the public, but this is something they wanted to do. Didn't have an opposing force. And I had some friends who thought, well, this could be fun.
Okay.
And they started His Majesty's Indian Department. So they talked to me about that, and it's like, I thought, well, I really don't want to buy a British uniform, and I don't want to go out and buy a brown vest, but I could portray a Seneca Indian. So I started out as a Seneca Indian.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and because with a little hard to believe, but yes, I did that. And with the lean-to and everything else that I had, a little bit of tweaking, I was able to do that. And that was a lot of fun, and that got me started. As time went on, that group started doing less of the skirmishes, and we started, it evolved, His Majesty's Indian Department evolved into the Northwest Colonial Reenactors
I
Association.
see. Okay.
And that broadened our scope. And I took on a civilian portrayal at that point. I got to wear nicer clothes.
Yes, right.
And I got to get off the ground.
Oh,
So
my
that was
gosh.
the other part of that. And one thing that just going back to during the fur trade, if I'm going to do something, I want to do something that I know. Well, we were doing some work with the Lady Washington.
Oh, out of Aberdeen?
Yes,
Yes.
the
Okay.
oh, I forget. I'm sorry, but the name of the organization escapes me. Washington Historic Seaport
Oh, yes,
with the
right.
with the Lady
Yes.
Washington, and they were going to do a couple of trips with their longboats, and you had to apply, and we were going to be first person reenacting the whole time, and you had to say, well, what skills do you have? And I'm going through things I know how to do. It's like, I can cook. I'll be a cook. I thought this was a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Got in a 24-foot long boat with 12 other people, and I grabbed a 12-foot oar, and I pulled on a 12-foot oar for 9 hours.
Oh, my gosh.
And yeah, halfway through, I actually stopped and got some buckskin out of my kit, and I made gloves. Oh, the blisters were horrible. But so once we get to camp, then as cook, I've got to build a tripod. I've got to do a fire pit. I got to cook food for 26 people. So it got around, by the time we cooked the meals and we cleaned everything up, the one good thing about being a cook is you didn't have to pull night watch.
Ah.
So about 11:30, I got done. I laid down on a flat rock. I fell hard asleep. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, my buddy Critter came over and he shoved me. He goes, "Hey, Mark, you got to get up and make breakfast." I started rethinking that. But it was so enjoyable that they decided to do another one. And I said, yeah, I'll be a cook again. So after dipping my toe in the water of cooking during that time period, I decided that I wanted to be an innkeeper.
Okay.
So that's the persona that I portray now,
Ah.
is an innkeeper.
Okay, and your name is?
My name is Robert Brady.
Robert Brady. Why did you choose Robert Brady?
Brady is actually my ancestral name.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. My grandfather changed it from Brady to Curtis when he came out of Ireland.
Ah.
And that's a whole nother story. But
Okay.
and Robert's kind of a funny story that I don't really
Okay.
think
No,
I'm going
no.
to go into here. But yeah, Robert Brady, and then my wife, who I proposed to at one of our Colonial encampments.
Oh, my gosh.
She portrays the innkeeper's wife,
Ah.
and we keep a small inn in Massachusetts.
So let me ask this. You are an innkeeper and you portray it, and you portray the innkeeper both in public and private events. In public events, you are not only events open to the public, but evidently you go and do that in small groups too. What is the personality of your innkeeper like?
I guess something that I heard a number of years ago at a Colonial encampment is your status in life breaks down to how close you get to sit to the salt. So at a large gathering, a large table,
Okay.
the person who sits at the head of the table, the master of the household,
Right.
they will have the salt. And the higher your status, the closer you'll sit to the salt.
Wow.
I'm down at the other end of the table.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, it seems like everyone wants to key in on the main characters within history, which, you know, it's common.
Okay.
But there's a lot more common people than there were of them.
Yes, you got it. Yeah.
And I don't dress real high
Okay.
society. I don't portray myself that well. I tend to be
Okay.
I don't want to say slovenly, but I'm comfortable in my attire because I'm working all day. You know, we've got to keep a garden, and we've got to keep some stock. We got to cook some meals.
Yeah.
And we got to clean those rooms.
Yeah.
I got to make some mead. You know, I've got to keep my lodgers happy.
Okay. So when somebody shows an interest in what you're doing, maybe students, maybe young adults, older adults, and you interrelate with them and respond to the questions, when they turn around and walk away, what would you like them to remember about their conversation with you?
Well, I would kind of hope that people, in looking back at history, would realize exactly how good we have it today.
Oh.
That's one thing that was a big learning curve for me when I started doing these week-long events.
Yes.
And you're living a lifestyle of that time period.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of time to do everything. I mean, I want a cup of coffee when I get up in the morning. Well, I got to take out flint and steel and tinder, and I've got to build a fire, and I've got to boil water so I can get my cup of coffee. So then I get my breakfast. Okay, so breakfast is over. I need to wash my dishes. Well, I need to boil water so I can wash my dishes. The amount of time that takes compared to getting up in the morning and walking over to the Keurig and getting a cup of coffee and then putting your cup in the dishwasher is tremendous. So,
how much? I mean, a Keurig takes how many seconds?
oh, well, I would say that probably from the time that I pull out the flint and steel until my dishes are cleaned and back in the cabinet, that's a couple of hours. So now you're running into lunch.
Yeah, for a cup of coffee.
And, well, coffee and breakfast. You know,
Yeah.
I look back at my grandparents who all, you know, had farms
Yes.
and orchards, and they got up early and they worked all day until the sun went down, and they read the Bible and they went to bed.
Okay.
I mean, their day was full in just surviving, in just subsistence.
Huh.
So, and that was true, you know, until we got into this modern society that we're in today.
Sure. So you're still portraying.
Yes.
And why are you still portraying? I mean, 30 years?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I would say that a lot of it has to do with the people who do this. Mm-hmm. I talked about how honest they were.
Yes.
And how giving they are.
Yes.
And they will literally give you the shirt off their back. And I've seen it time and time again. They've become my family. Without a doubt. Mm-hmm. You know, these are members of my family, and I care about them deeply. Mm-hmm. And I want to be around them. Mm-hmm. And also, I want to every day learn something new. Mm. And so I strive to learn more about what it is I'm doing, mm-hmm. to improve the skills that I have. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the reason I still do it. I'm not done.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, so if somebody was interested in kind of getting to know more about reenacting from a standpoint of course, there are those that want to attend, and then there are and experience that, and then there are those that actually might want to say, maybe we'd want to do a little bit more than attend. What would you say to them that the next step might be for them to do a little more than just attend?
You know, we do a certain amount of outreach.
Okay.
You know, of course, any public events that an NCRA member is at, we're going to be promoting ourselves and getting that information out. The second weekend in March, we'll be at the Cascade Mountain Man Gun Show and Craft Show in Enumclaw, Washington.
All right.
And we'll have a display there, and we'll be talking about what we do and handing out literature there. Mm-hmm. And so, but then again, we have our website, Northwest Colonial Reenactors.
Okay. We
have a Facebook page.
All right.
And you can find out more about us there. You can reach out to any of us. Like I said, I'm the president. Mm-hmm. Our secretary, treasurer, our vice president. We're all glad to talk to anyone who wants more information. And I really would like to say that if you are interested in getting involved, you don't need to be that historian.
Okay.
All you need to do is have a desire
Okay.
to do something fun, to learn something you don't know, or to share something that you do know, or share something, some skill that you do have.
All right.
And we've had people entered in that were into costuming, had skills coming in.
Okay.
But there's opportunities out there in reenacting for the whole gambit of life. We've gone on period correct hunts, game laws required,
Right.
followed, camping events, skills events. One time we had what we called the cast iron chef, like the Iron Chef.
Okay, yes.
We showed up for the event. There was going to be one mystery item. They gave us our mystery item, and then we were supposed to go prepare a dish using the implements that they would have had,
Oh my gosh.
using that one ingredient,
Okay.
which ended up to be pumpkin. Very common for the colonial
Yes,
America.
right.
And that was a lot of fun.
So what about, we're in first week of February, second week of February, 2024. If somebody says, well, I just want to go to an event, what type of events are available throughout the year? And I don't know if you got them all memorized, but maybe the ones you can kind of maybe walk us through that might be available, those that are open to the public, of course.
The NCRA has gone through quite a few changes over the years.
Okay.
Like I said, we started out really focused on skirmishes and battles and that sort of thing. And I've been involved with a number of nonprofit organizations and a number of board of directors, and I always have felt that an organization is what the membership wants it to be. So at our last Colonial encampment, I surveyed the entire membership, and I asked them, how did you get started? Why do you do this? And what do you want to see? What do you want from the NCRA? And the crux of it came down to they wanted more opportunities to get together with each other.
Okay.
They wanted more social opportunities. So actually this Saturday down in Rochester, we have our second annual Sweetheart Dance. We're going to have a potluck, and then Wyland is going to teach us more of what we don't know about colonial dancing.
Okay.
We're slow learners, but we're getting there. And then, of course, second weekend in March in Enumclaw, we'll be out there at the Cascade Mountain Man Show, talking to folks there. In April, the NCRA is going to have the first croquet and bocce championships here in Sequim, and that should be fun. Bocce is definitely period correct. Croquet is close.
Okay.
There's a game that goes back to Ireland that goes back into the 13th century. Croquet, as we know it today, was France 1815. Just a couple years outside of we cut it off at 1800 for a colonial reenacting, the Federalist period. February, March, April. Beyond that, I think what the NCRA will primarily be doing will be joining in with some of the other organizations around, joining in on their events. There's an organization out of the Olympia area, Spirit of 76. Their primary focus is battle reenactment and the military side of it, so we'll probably be joining in with them. Every September is our seminal event, which is our Colonial encampment. That one is for us. We have had a public day where we invite the public to come out and see what it is we do and how we do it. unfortunately, the site that we've had for more than 15 years, we have lost.
Oh, okay.
So we're scrambling to find another site. And so that's a TBD, to be determined exactly when and where. We've got a couple of potentials.
Okay, all right.
But that's pretty much it on the calendar for now. And the one thing about the NCRA is that when we got started, we were so fortunate in the fact that one of our founding members was an insurance agent.
Okay.
And he got us lined up with insurance. And what that insurance allows us to do is to hold events at different places
Okay.
and cover the organization and its board of directors. So that insurance will follow us. And we always encourage all of our membership, if there's something that you want to do, let us know. Let us put it on the calendar.
Yes.
Our insurance will follow you. We will promote it because the Northwest Colonial Reenactors Society is geographically large. We may not be large in numbers, but we have had members from Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, California.
My word, I didn't realize. Huh.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So the majority of us are somewhere around the Puget Sound, but we have members that are far flung.
Okay. So if there's a family that wants to attend one of these events, and I'm assuming they can go on your website, and is it Northwest Colonial Reenactors Association website? Okay. And find the events and how close they are to them. When a family goes, I'm assuming it is family friendly.
Yes.
And that it may be pet friendly as well?
Yes.
Okay. What about mobility issues?
We do the best we can.
Okay.
We do, and you know, we've had members who needed wheelchairs.
Yes.
And at our Colonial encampment, we always have an ADA restroom, outhouse. So we accommodate that. You know, I hate to see someone not do something because they don't have a wheelchair from before 1800.
Yes.
Yeah, participation is important for people to get out there and enjoy what they want to do. You talked about authenticity with some organizations.
Right.
Some organizations will take that to the extreme. For us, I kind of go by the 10-foot rule. If you look good from 10 feet, you're in. You know,
I like that. Yes.
You know, and we're talking head to toe clothing. If you're not there, you know, we're going to do what we can to help you get there. If you're not there at all and you want to find out how to get involved and how you can set yourself up, we are definitely the resource for you. We can tell you where you can get the supplies, how you can get the information, and to become involved.
Okay. Now, is there some sort of event at Port Gamble, Washington in July?
There could be. I haven't. That hasn't gotten to me yet.
Okay.
There has been an event at Port Gamble in the past that I have participated in. All I remember is raining a lot.
Yeah.
I can't remember when it was, but it was raining a lot.
But they can go onto your website and find that. And also, so the Colonial Reenactors, and there are different groups. I understand there's a group that might be artillery related.
Yes, within the Spirit of 76.
Yes.
They have infantry, artillery, and Navy.
Oh, wow.
All British.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Yeah.
And then I understand there may be another group of drummers and fifers?
Actually, the gentleman who started Spirit of 76, he's the drummer and fife. It was the drum and fife unit.
I see.
Started out. Then they expanded into infantry, artillery, and into the Navy.
Okay, and I imagine they're pretty sharp looking when they're dressed and in their reds or whatever they call them, not red.
Regimentals.
Okay, red. Thank you.
Yeah.
And able to go through. They look pretty sharp.
Oh, they do. They do. And it's funny, when we started doing this more than 20 years ago, we didn't have any British.
Oh,
That's how we got the His Majesty's Indian Department.
I
Now
see.
the script's been flipped, and unfortunately, the guys that were doing Rogers Rangers have kind of aged out. I hate to put it that way, but they're not out on the ground doing it.
Okay.
2nd Connecticut has unfortunately disbanded.
Okay.
The NCRA is a little less military. We're much more civilian and much more living history based. We have military within that, but currently I don't know of a patriot military group that's operating, at least in this general area.
So there's a need for that.
There is a definite need for that. I mean, we'll scrape together a militia unit just out of those of us that know how to do such, but there's not an organized militia unit currently.
I see. And maybe some younger members. So the aging out process, they would have a maybe 30 years.
I'll tell you, it would be great to have some younger members because, running around in the summer sun, dressed in wool, packing a musket, you'll put a sweat on.
Okay, so we've been primarily talking about the Pacific Northwest, and of course we're close to Seattle area there. If you are not in the Pacific Northwest and you want to get into reenacting, maybe you're in the Southwest, the Central States, Texas, and maybe over Mississippi in that area there. I know on the East Coast they got a lot, but how would people find opportunities to attend an event and maybe pursue reenactment? What would you suggest?
Well, as far as I know, there's not a national encompassing organization like I'm sure there was with the Civil War reenacting.
I see.
The Civil War reenacting is they have national coalitions, I guess, or you would call it, organizing bodies. And I don't know of one for colonial reenacting. But you get to the Midwest and the East Coast, you're going to find primarily colonial reenacting organizations based around forts or historical locations of where you are.
All right.
On the West Coast, it's much more going to be the mountain men, cowboys. That's what we are.
Sure.
Colonial reenacting and even Civil War reenacting in the Northwest is a little odd in the fact that, of course, there was nothing going on here at that time. My brother, who was a member of the 1st Oregon Volunteers, which also portrayed the 20th Maine. So the Webb feat, the 1st Oregon Volunteers, by the time they left Oregon and they got to the Civil War, the war was over.
Oh my gosh.
So, it's kind of an odd an odd situation here in the Northwest. But if you love history and you want to learn about history and you want to try and portray history, because if you don't learn from history, you're bound to repeat it. Then there's opportunities to do such.
Okay. Couple of follow-up questions. So if somebody wanted to actually get involved in reenactment, how expensive is that? Is it really, really expensive or what?
How close you want to sit to the salt.
Yeah.
In colonial reenacting, absolutely the cheapest way to go is to be a sailor. You get a pair of slops, which anybody who can run a sewing machine can make a pair of slops. A shirt, and a hat, you're a sailor. You're done.
Okay.
If you're a farmer or a tradesman, you're not dressing to the nines.
Okay.
It all depends on what you're portraying. There's a great company out there, GWS Townsend and Sons,
Okay.
mail order company.
All right.
They're clothiers, and they've got the full spectrum from, your gentry all the way down to your farmhands
Okay.
and everything in between.
So just kind of a farmhand, maybe a few $100s would
yeah.
get you clothing, shoes, socks, hat, some equipment, a belt. Those.
I know a lot of the stuff you can make yourself.
Okay.
And that's when I started. I think for the first 10 years, I don't think I bought any clothes.
Okay. All right.
I have two brothers. I have no sisters.
Oh,
My
boy.
mother made sure her boys knew how to cook and sew. You can find patterns. You can find patterns for correct patterns for a lot of this, and you can make a lot of it yourself. If you can find a trade show out there, you can find used clothing or find local seamstresses who make the clothing as well. So it all depends on to what extent you want to go into this.
Okay. So it is 2024 and 2026 is a coming. So this might be a perfect time to, if a person's thinking about reenacting, to get involved, because would you expect more and more events?
The fur trade reenactors, the
Yes.
mountain men reenactors, that pretty much started in 1976.
Oh, okay. All right.
People start looking back, that's where the interest comes. And then you had movies like The Mountain Men and Jeremiah Johnson, and that spurs a lot of interest. Well, then Last of the Mohicans comes out,
Yes.
and Mel Gibson in The Patriot. That was a big boom to colonial reenacting. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right that as people look back, they'll find some interest in it, hopefully learn something they didn't know.
And then there's the series Turn too, which
Oh, yes.
a whole lot of interest. Another question, we're talking about these different groups of reenactors, and you mentioned that you started out with Seneca, and there's one gentleman, is he Ojibwa?
Yes, Top Knot.
Top Knot.
Yes.
Okay, all right. But they have their own powwows. First Nation has powwows. I wouldn't say they are reenactors, they're an extension of who they are.
Yes, and that's exactly true. That's an evolutionary process in the powwows. I've known First Nations people that attended powwows, and that it's an evolution of that. Top Knot is not actually Native American. He portrays that. It's like myself portraying the Seneca. I have a lot of admiration for Native Americans and their culture. And I didn't, for myself personally, I found it an honor to portray that. And Top Knot feels the same way. He has a lot of respect for what he does. And the interesting thing about Top Knot is he's the one that told me that when he goes back to the big events back east,
Okay.
Metzger Station and things like that. And he says, we're doing it as well out here in the Northwest as they are on the East Coast.
Really?
There just isn't as many of us.
Wow.
So we have passionate people out here that are doing it right.
That's totally cool. I love that. And so we're just not a shadow of what's going on. We are a true representation. So it has more to do with the individuals involved. Wow. That
We just don't have the historic location to
Sure.
do it at.
Sure. So we have to create our own, but we're still bringing American history to the forefront. And with the 250 celebration of the Declaration of Independence, oh my gosh, what a time to be involved
Yes.
in reenacting. And so anybody listening to this, they have the contact information. Any other thoughts if somebody wanted to contact you or maybe another reenactment community?
Yeah, I would say by all means reach out to anyone in the NCRA. I hate to speak for other organizations out there, but whatever you may be interested in, there's a niche for you.
Okay.
If you want to bring forth skills that you have, and there's a resurgence in old skills, blacksmithing and a lot of things like that, that people are getting very interested in, that there's an opportunity for you. I mean, we look at what we've done at our colonial encampments. We've made cottage cheese. We've made butter. We take those skills and things that really wasn't a skill for them. It's what they had to do every day.
Yeah.
Starting a fire with flint and steel may be kind of a big deal to us. It was nothing to them. They did it every day, all day. So there's a niche out there for you. All the things that we've done over the years at our events, I've done seminars from other than historic seminars. I've done how do you make a fish hook, making mead.
Oh, yeah.
Things of that nature, and you get into doing it the same way that they did it then.
Wow.
Not taking the shortcuts and the easy ways that we do it today.
Okay. And so you did say that you could be available for private events. When you said private events, what do you...
The private events I was referring to is more of the events we do for ourselves.
Okay.
Like our colonial encampment. That is it's for us because we're rewarding ourselves for going out there and
just
for everyone else, and a chance for us to get together as a community to spend time with each other. And that's also a time where we expand our own knowledge.
Okay.
And we have seminars and we learn.
Okay. So then, however, you have your formal events, but you're available if somebody would like you to come in and to give a presentation. And what type of groups typically ask you to come in?
Well, we've been asked by community events, little community fairs, small community events we've been asked to go into. We've been asked to come into schools, not as often. We've had church groups that have asked us that are interested. And also with, you kind of touched on preppers, there's a lot of interest in, how do you preserve your food? How do you keep your food? And that's something that we can speak to. Okay. And that's had some interest with some church groups.
Okay.
I'd be, personally, with the gun side of it, the firearms side of it, that's something I'm very well versed in, and I know a number of gun builders, and occasionally have an opportunity to come and give a history of muzzleloading firearms.
Okay, all right. And now your wife has a specialty of doing what type of events?
Oh, as far as my wife isn't as comfortable in the public events, but she does have a lot of skills, and her skills are more from the craft side of it. In our home, in our modern day life, I cook and she does the dishes. Oh, I am the cook, but my wife tats, and tatting is a thread art for making laces. Okay, and that's something that they would have done. So she'll teach tatting. The one thing that she does quite often at our events is we put on a tea.
A tea.
And she's the hostess for our tea.
Wow. So typically what size group is a comfortable group? 5 or 6? Or?
That was kind of the funny thing. It was the first year that we did this. We figured we would just at our colonial encampment, we're going to have tea at 2 o'clock today. Figured the ladies would come over and maybe some of the young ladies. The whole camp emptied. And so now we're scrambling. So, I've got 2 teapots and 2 tea kettles, and I bake for a couple of days before the event, so we have snacks to have, and we'll make room for anybody.
Well, I have about 200 tea bags from Boston.
Oh, you do?
Yes, and when I was over there a year ago, September, we went to the museum on the water there and bought a couple hundred of them with the flags crossed there. And so maybe we should get together. I'll bring the tea bags. And
Yep,
go from there.
I'll cook up some goodies, and we'll get my wife's tea sets out, and you got to symbolically throw one of those tea bags in the harbor.
I did not. Yeah, I could do that next time I'm there. So, Mark, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon and just sharing your passion and your history with the Northwest Colonial Reenactors Association. And if anybody wants to get a hold of Mark, you've got the website and the phone number. Give a follow-up call. I sense that he would love to talk to you. So, thanks again,
Yeah,
Mark.
thank you, Vern, for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to talk about what it is that I love. I do appreciate that.
Okay.